Hello everyone, and welcome to the second video in the series I'm putting together of doing Unreal and DevOps. During this video, I plan on going through things like the initial setup of Azure DevOps, setting up boards for issue management, and setting up the repositories. I'm also going to go through a suggested setup of the repository and how to configure them, but you don't have to follow that if you don't want to. And I'm going to be configuring the main repository for use with Unreal for continuous integration. All right, so let's get Azure DevOps going. So here I am in Firefox. And I'm going to look for Azure DevOps. We will go into DevOps services. So we're going to go with the start for free. And it wants me to create an account. I'm going to go to create an account, and I'm going to go to my webmail over here. And I have this one in here, which should be erideacon@erideacon.com. erideacon@erideacon.com. Next, securely generated password. I'm not going to use that one because it's full on the stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my data vault. There's the password. I'm going to hit next. We are in Canada. What it's going to do is ask us to verify our email. Enter the code that we sent over there. And this is, I would like to hear from Microsoft and its family. No, I do not want to hear about that. We're going to hit next. Working. Please solve the puzzle so we know you're not a robot. Verification complete. You're proving you're a human. Continue your action. So get started with that. Okay, our thing is in Canada, right there. Continue. No, I do not want to hear from Microsoft. We're going to be in the Erideacon organization. Host your projects in Canada. Put in the CAPTA, and we'll continue on. We will start off with the first one. We will create our project. What we're going to do in here, we're going to start talking about how we want to set things up and our repos. We are here now with our initial repository. So what we're going to do is we are going to click the down arrow here and go a new repository. We're going to call this visual art, add a gitignore, but we're just going to go create in here and just going to go create. Next, we are going to go in here and we're going to make a new repository, and this is going to be called audio art. We're going to hit create. And then finally, we are going to make a new repository called design. I want to interject in here while I'm using multiple repositories. It's mainly to do with having a smaller download for the continuous integration server, but it also helps to isolate the raw assets from the Unreal assets. When we drag in assets into the Unreal Engine, they will always be converted from their initial asset type, like a Blender file or an XBF or a JPEG, into a UAsset file. So I wanted to only have in the main repository the UAsset files and anything that is needed to create the basic game. It also helps to have faster downloads for different participants. If you do have a team with multiple people, it will help to isolate and make the repository downloads faster for those people. Most people that you'll probably be dealing with will probably be dealing with the Unreal assets directly and programming your game, whereas you'll have a few artists to deal with those assets. Now I have 4 repositories. The first one is the main repository, and this is the one that the continuous integration server deals with the most. It is the repository that contains the Unreal Engine files and the UAssets. The next one I have is the design repositories, and this will contain things like PowerPoint, Excel, write-ups of the various different game features, and other things like that. This repository here doesn't really need to be split away from the main repository, but it is a good idea to have it in there just to make sure the only thing that gets downloaded by the continuous integration server is the main repository that it needs to build things with. The next one is the audio art repository, and this is where we have our WAV files and all the various different files we have for manipulating the audio. Now, my experience with working at Electronic Arts had the audio files were usually masked away from everybody because they're usually the biggest part of a repository, biggest part of a game. The audio files, despite only dealing with audio, seem to be some of the largest assets I've ever dealt with. And finally, the last repository that I'm going to be dealing with is the visual art. And this is the one that has the Blender files, GIMP, Photoshop, or animations, or whatever you think when it comes to the visualization of your game. All right, so if we go back to repositories over here, you'll notice that we have a bunch of different ones in here. This is going to be our main repository right here, and this is the one that is going to have the various different things that we're going to have for building the game. And this is also the one that will be shared with the continuous integration server. We can actually come in here and add in an Unreal gitignore file, which is good. So we'll do initialize on that. It's added in a few things in here, but we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So this is how we have set up our repositories. The next thing we want to have a look at is the boards. What we want to have a look at in here is we got boards in here, but the thing I want to do is go back to repositories, and I want to go back to over to here, and I want to manage repositories. Okay, let's have a look at this thing. We will manage this guy right here, get under settings, and what we want to do in here, commit mention linking. Okay, so that's already set up, commit mention work item resolution. Okay, so we've got it actually linked to the commits over there. What we're going to do in here is we are going to go over to our boards. This is going to be what we're going to be set up as, and we're going to have a look at adding in a new work item. And this is going to be an epic, since this follows Agile. And this epic is to do reason added to backlog area. Their description is, let's put in the title in here, initial setup of the MGA project. So we put it under description here. This epic covers all the tasks for the initial setup of the MGA ATCH game. There's no link because this is an epic. We'll just hit save. We will add in a new work item, and we're going to make it task. Initial configuration of the MGA repository. Set up the gitignore file and the .git attributes file. It is linked to as a child of the epic. We'll add that in here. We're going to save this, and then we're going to change this to in progress. The next thing we're going to do is clone the repository. I put everything under my D drive, under my AirDeacon directory, and then I have a Git in there. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this thing open here, go back to my repositories, make sure I'm in the right repository here, and I am going to go clone. Okay, I want the HTTPS, but actually before we do that, what I want to do is set up what is called a personal access token. This is going to be very important and very needed with Git LFS, because one of the things that you will find when you look at Git LFS and Azure DevOps is that it does not support Git LFS through Secure Shell. So you want to set up its personal access token. So what we're going to do in here is we are going to go under user settings and personal access tokens. We are going to create a new token. It is going to be, we're going to call this one the temporary token for video expiration, since I can only do that for 30 days. All right, well anyways, this token is going to be deleted when I post this video here. You're going to be able to see what the token looks like, but it's going to be deleted almost immediately. So I'm going to create this personal access token. I am going to copy this thing here, and we will be using that soon. So let me open up Notepad++, and this is my personal access token. Now that we have our personal access token, we're going to go over here and we're going to hit clone. And HTTPS is what we need. Grab that, and we're going to go over to our Git bash here. I'm going to go git clone. We're going to hit paste, and what we're going to do in here is we're going to come back over here and put in our personal access token. And yep, so what that does is that will allow us to access the repository. And this is also the link that we will be given to our revision control system. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that and paste it for here for right now. And let's hit return. And it's going to say cloning into that. So we go to MGA ATCH, and you'll notice there's nothing in here, but if we do an ls-a, we have a gitignore. So what we're going to do here is open up our repository, and we're going to grab that and toss it into here. Because what we're also going to be doing is we're going to be setting up a few new folders. So what we're going to do in here is we're going to have a continuous integration folder. which will be our continuous integration scripts. Actually, I'm going to change that to lowercase. Then we're going to make another new folder called game. And in here, this is where we're going to make the project. So what we're going to do in here is that we're going to be putting in game/mga like that into here, so that our gitignore will be working with that instead of everything at the root directory. Okay, this allows me to actually have some assets in here if I want to, but this thing will be set up so that it will ignore the stuff that needs to be ignored. So we're just going to hit Control S on this thing. So that is our gitignore setup. Next, we need to set up our Git LFS. Right now we're going to do a Git LFS install. Git LFS is initialized. Next. So what we need to set up next is the file extensions that we want to get pushed into Git LFS. Now these will be all of our binary assets. Now that we have Git LFS installed done, we're going to type Git LFS track star.u asset. And before I go on, I show you what's in that Git attributes file. It shows you that that's in there. Okay, so we're going to add in UMAP, and then we'll add in things like FBX, 3DS, PSD, which is for Photoshop, PNG, anything large that we plan on having inside the game that is basically a big asset. XCF, JPGs, blend. If we have a look at that Git attributes file, which is back here, Git attributes file, you'll notice that we have this thing all set up. So what we're just going to do is we're just going to come in here, put it in here, Unreal Engine file types, and down here, common large binary asset file types. So basically, I'm just putting some comments in here just to say what we've got in here. There we are. And now what we're going to do in here is we're going to do a git status. And you know, so we have a git ignore and git attributes. So we're going to do a git add.git attributes and .git ignore. Okay, we've done that. And then we do a git status. And you notice that they as a new file, and right there, I'm going to go git commit -m number 2, I think. It is number 2. Okay, with Azure DevOps, if you have a number 2 like that, it will match this commit to this issue or this task. So we're going to say number 2, setting up initial repository with custom.gitignore and Git LFS set up. We're just going to do that. All right. So you see that in there. If we do a git status, you see that we have nothing left in there, and we go to git log. You'll see that Ari Deacon has gone in here. I should actually put in my real username in here for that. So one thing I did learn is that you have to put the number sign at the end. So setting up within here, and it's now set up correctly. Okay, so I'm going to do a git push origin main. There we go. And now, if you notice in here, since I had that set up, it now has the commit set up in here. Okay, and if I click over here, it will then go to the commit. And if I just go back to commits, okay, you see it's in here. And well, I don't know how to go back to the issue that it is linking to. That's something I'm going to have to look up. But the important thing is that we look in here, and it is now set to doing. And if we look in here, we've got this link set up, which is very important. So now we have commits linked to our things like that. What I would love to see in here is a history. Okay, let's see how we go. Right there, that would be history. Basically what happened is change state from to do to doing. This is in, obviously this is 321 PST That is really well off. I'm going to have to figure out what it's doing with that. But basically, anyways, you can see in the history, it has now linked our commit to that. All right, so that is good right there. I'm going to wrap up this video here. So what have we done? We've created a new Azure DevOps account. We've created our organization, and we've created 4 repositories inside of our project. And then we've also set up the gitignore and Git LFS. So what I've learned while I was doing this video, the minimum time on a personal access token is 30 days. And do not put the Azure boards number at the beginning of your git commit message. That's that pound or number sign and then the number as part of the git commit message, because what will happen is that when you try to do a git amend for whatever reason, the git parser will take that as a comment. So you have to make sure you put the number sign boards issue at the end or the middle of your git commit message. So where do we go from here? On the next video, I'll be creating an Unreal 3D project. Now, people have done this all the time. And then I will be setting up Jenkins to automatically build that project. So where to find me? Best place to find me is streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/AirDeaconGames. But until then, I'm Deacon, and you guys have fun with Unreal and DevOps.